Welcome to Spiritual Steps, a podcast about learning to pray, listen, and grow by taking small steps on the spiritual journey. I'm your host, Stephen Hovatter, and this is episode 4, The Prayer of Letting Go. In this episode, I want to encourage you to let go and allow God's presence in prayer to form you by helping you let go of bitterness and anxiety or guilt or whatever else it is. Because the truth is, we all carry baggage. Okay, now for some people, that baggage is rooted in a hurtful past, whether that be like corrupt memories of reality or memories of a corrupted reality. The hurt is real, and it can't be discounted or papered over. And to deny that, to deny that hurt, to suppress that hurt, it's not healthy. And, really, depending on the depth of that hurt, sometimes a trusted counselor or, a group of support may be the only way of registering the real deep toll that they have on your life, But nonetheless, in prayer, those hurts can be acknowledged. And prayer can be a way of moving in the direction of letting them go, like really not just suppressing them, but letting them have their weight and then beginning to heal from them. And the same thing's true of guilt, which is kind of another side of that, right? It's not carrying with you the hurt that's been inflicted on you, but it's carrying with yourself the hurt that you've inflicted on somebody else. And again, there may be things that you need to do outside of prayer. I don't really like that language, but the active things that you do in the world where you pursue reconciliation with somebody else, like you go and you make things right. But sometimes even when we've done that, the shame of our failure and the hurt that we've inflicted still remains with us, despite the grace that we've received or the effort at reconciliation that we've made. And prayer is an important part of like moving from that and letting go and not carrying that burden and that baggage around with you, just indefinitely. Now, on a different side of things, on a different note, some of us carry baggage that comes not from the past, but it comes from the future. We borrow trouble from the future, and that comes to us in the form of anxiety. And anxiety is a hard thing to carry around. Now, there's lots of different forms of this, right? I don't want to just like blanket over and say just anxiety is anxiety, because sometimes there's anxiety that comes from fear, like you dread things that might happen in the future or that you seem like they might happen. And, there's other cases where the anxiety might stem from some sort of ambition and like something you're not sure if you can accomplish or whatnot, and your drive, and it just builds up this anxiety within you. But you get the drift, right? Like you carry those things from the future, and it's a different way of bringing that stuff into the present and carrying it now, and it weighs you down. It makes you really, really heavy. Now, maybe besides all of these things, okay, whether those be our guilt or shame from the past, or our hurt from the past, or whether it be our anxieties about the future, fears, ambitions, whatever, there may be lots of other things that we carry that are heavy, but you get the drift of what I'm saying. You carry these things around, and it doesn't do you any good. And often it's really, really very counterproductive, because these things, sometimes they're the seeds of more of the same. They're seeds of more bitterness or more guilt or more anxiety or more fear. They bring about their own fulfillment. And sometimes they even multiply that fulfillment because they limit your capacity to live in and respond to the present. And that can be sustaining for all these things, right? Now, if you've marked off time for prayer, if you're a person of prayer, then you're carrying these sorts of things around, then I bet you've already, brought them into that life of prayer. You probably pray about these things all the time, and that's, that's well and good, okay? But for today's small step, I want to add to your toolbox by sharing with you a method of prayer that you might find helpful, okay? Now, most of us learn to pray primarily in a verbal way. It's about what we say to God. I mean, even if we are in silence, we pray in silence, that we're not speaking out loud, we're not voicing, the words. In our minds, we still primarily pray verbally, like we have this silent running of words within our heads, and so you may have a silent room, but your mind is still running through these verbal things, okay? And I'm telling you, there's a world of difference between a silent room and a quiet mind, right? So the exercise we're going to think about in the next few minutes is a little bit different. It's more of a nonverbal form of prayer. It's a way of praying with your imagination and your body. Now what we're going to do here in this recording is not meant to be like a guided meditation or anything like that. I'm going to assume that you're going to do it, later, not necessarily with me here. Instead of what I want to do is describe this method and just kind of offer it to you. And then I want to encourage you later on to practice that method, okay? Not just once, but maybe a few times over and over again. Just make it a part of your prayer life. Maybe not something you do every day, but from time to time. And something that adds to your arsenal of prayer, your toolbox of prayer, and grows your capacity to let go of things, okay? Now, you got to begin. You got to mark out the time here. I mean, this isn't something you're going to do, just in a moment as you're driving down the freeway or something like that. You want to mark out, time to do this. Now, at least 10 minutes, if you can manage it, maybe 20 or more, some of it's going to be your own capacity, your own comfort level here, which hopefully will grow over time. And the method I'm going to describe is, specifically about letting go of things today, but it's a form of prayer that can be used also in other contexts, and we'll probably talk about those some on future episodes. But what you want to do, the capacity for all these kinds of prayer is going to grow over time, but you got to mark off that initial space, okay, or initial time, and then find a place where you can be still and undisturbed and reasonably comfortable for that period of time. Okay, now there's nothing fancy here. I mean, we're not talking about finding a perfect posture of alignment or whatever. It's not really our gig. In fact, I don't want you to fuss too much about the way you put your body. Okay, but you do need to be able to put your body at ease and just let it come to rest, and then begin with a moment of silence. Still, your thoughts become centered in prayer. Center yourself. Collect yourself in stillness. And, to help that, sometimes it may be helpful to have some sort of passage to read, like, something like the 23rd Psalm or, similar passage, and just take that and read through it, reflectively, prayerfully. And then again, after you do that, just collect yourself. What you're doing, you want to just center and collect yourself in stillness before the Lord. Okay, acknowledge your presence before God and just stay. Okay, and just remain there alone with the Lord for a moment. Now, that recognition of presence is a really critical part of this. This is kind of what we're moving from, not just a meditative exercise, which is fine and helpful too, but really a prayer exercise. So be conscious, prayerful, be in recognition of God's presence there with you. And then, in awareness of God's presence, allow those burdens, which are your burdens, allow those things to come into your mind, okay, one at a time. Maybe do one of them for a longer period of time, or maybe just do one in each, kind of session of prayer like this. But what I would do is I'd just kind of let these things come in one at a time, and I would acknowledge it, okay, the one that I'm focused on. I would acknowledge it, and I would hold it right at the center of my heart, okay? I would let that be present to me. I'd be fully present to that hurt. I would want to nod to it, acknowledge its reality, and then I want to dismiss it. I want to let it just dissolve before me, okay? Now, that latter bit may be a little too easily said for you, and so what we're going to do is use two ways of physically reinforcing that dismissal. And the first is breath. I want you to consider your own breathing as a way of releasing these things. So breathe deeply and consciously, and with every breath, let these things leave your body. Okay, let them leave your presence. Breathe in and out, and with every breath, receive what you need from the Lord. And whether that's love or grace or hope or whatever it is that's kind of the counter to the burden that you're carrying, receive that, and then when you exhale the negative side. Okay, so breathe in and breathe out and receive and let go. Okay, receive it and let go. Now, the second thing that you might want to do is use your hands, okay? So as you're receiving, as you're doing this breathing thing, you might want to open your hands up as you receive, inhale, open your hands up and like draw them to yourself, grasp the grace, the hope, the love that you're that you're receiving, okay, that you're conscious of receiving. And then when it's time to exhale, turn your hands outward or downward and let go of the burden in your mind and push it away, okay? Now, there's no wrong way to do this, okay? There's not like one certain motion with your hands that's like the magical thing. This isn't a magic deal. It's just a way of consciously reinforcing what we are letting our hearts and minds do in prayer, okay? So whatever kind of motion makes sense for you, you just do it. Now, if you're not used to praying physically like this, it's going to feel weird, okay? But practice it a bit and find what makes sense to you. You might choose to use both breath and hands or just one or the other. It doesn't really matter. What does matter is that you have time and space within your prayer life for moments of letting go. Everybody needs this. Everybody's got stuff they carry. Everybody needs time to let it go. You need to consciously, in the presence of God, quiet your mind and allow yourself to release the burdens, anxieties, guilt, fears, whatever that you carry. Let it go. So I want to encourage you to just take time to do that and focus your prayers in that way. And if you already have some method of doing that, that's great. But it might be this really physical way of doing this. Conscious physicality within prayer might be a helpful tool. So that's all I want to say for this episode. So thanks for listening. You can catch up with me on Twitter with the handle @StephenHovatter. It's linked in the show notes. And there's also a link to my other podcast, which is called The Craft of Ministry. So, if you're a person in ministry, you might want to check that out. I'd love for you to share this episode with your friends and help spread the word. There might be somebody that could be, blessed by that. And please remember to subscribe your podcast app of choice, if it's iTunes or Overcast or whatever it is. And we'll be back with a new episode next week. Until then, keep taking the next step that you see in front of you, and may God be with you on each step of your journey. Peace.